Hare Krishna.
Pranams to all the devotees. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Dhyananjana-shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri-Gurave Namaः. Shri-Chaitanya-Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa-Kadamyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri-Guru Shri-Yuta-Kamalam Shri-Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri-Rupam Sagratam Bhavanargunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saharanavanta Shri Shakhantamscha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravari Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadesha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Preshakadayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratviche Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavadeshwari Vrishabhanusuti Devi Mami Vancha Kalpatarunibhasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. So welcome back to our course on Bhakti Shastri. So now we have entered into the 17th chapter, and as we all know that we are discussing this last section of Bhagavad Gita, which primarily deals with the Jnana section, and in that we saw that how Lord Krishna has described the tree of samsara in the 15th chapter, its seed being the desire of living in the 13th chapter, the water that is nourishing the tree in the 14th chapter, and then the upper and lower part of the tree in the 16th chapter, the divine and determinate nature. And then after hearing all these things, Arjuna is inquisitive to know what about those people who have some kind of faith but not on scriptures. So where do they lie? So in a sense, this chapter talks about those kind of beings which are neither on higher branches nor on lower branches, in between. So the people who are situated in the between branches is being described in this particular chapter. And this chapter has basically three main theme or three main we can say sections. The first is wherein Arjuna inquires about this type of query, and Krishna answers that not just in one line but in the whole theory behind that in the entire chapter. But the first 7 verses talks about how the mode determines one's faith and how the worship is determined by that faith. The mode determines the faith and faith determines the worship. So this thing is being discussed in the first 7 verses. And then next from 8 to 22, Krishna gives explanation about how not just faith, but the food people eat, and then Yajna, Dan, and Tapa, which are the 3 essential principles of Karma Kand section, Yajna, Dan, and Tapa. So how these three things are also divided into 3 modes that Krishna explains. And finally, the conclusion of that from 23 to 28, Krishna explains Om Tat Sat. That means it indicates that Supreme Absolute Truth, Vishnu or Krishna, and anything which is done, any activity, any yajna, dan or tapa which is done without offering to the Vishnu, Supreme Absolute Truth, is actually asat. So that is what the essence of last 5 verses, 23 to 28. So now let us go and see the verses. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Yeshasya Vidhimutsrujya.
Esastra Vidusrijya.
Shraddhayamvitaha.
Yajan Shraddhayanvitaha.
Yesham Nishtatu Ka Krishna.
Tesham Nishtatu Ka Krishna.
Satmahorajastamaha.
Satmamahorajastamaha.
Translation.
Arjuna inquired, O Krishna, what is the situation of those who do not follow the principles of scripture but worship according to their own imagination? Are they in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance?
Yes. So this is the question put forward by Arjuna. That what is the situation of those people? So you have told in the previous verse that there are some kind of people who are following the scriptures and they are called as divine people. And you also told, oh my Lord, that those who do not follow scriptures, they are in called as asuras or demoniac people. So what about those people who are actually not following any principles, but they are worshipping something according to their own understanding? So what do you say about those people? That is a question of Arjuna over here to Lord Shri Krishna. And with this understanding, when Arjuna is putting this question, so then Krishna starts to answer that how this is depending upon the faith of the person. But before going to that, let's read the purport of Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada has summarized certain things based on the previous chapter and also very nicely put forward the questions of Arjuna. So somebody can read from the first line until this, till here. What is this position?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In the 4th chapter, 39th verse, it is said that a person faithful to a particular type of worship gradually becomes elevated to the stage of knowledge and attains the highest perfectional stage of peace and prosperity. In the 16th chapter, it is concluded that one who does not follow the principles laid down in the scriptures is called an asura, demon, and one who follows the scriptural injunctions faithfully is called a deva or demigod. Now, if one with faith follows some rules which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions, what is his position?
Yeah, so this is the question which Arjuna has asked, and now Srila Prabhupada puts the question of Arjuna in a very wonderful way. Yes, please go ahead.
This doubt of Arjuna is to be cleared by Krishna, and those who create some sort of good by selecting a human being and placing their faith in him, worshipping in goodness, passion, or ignorance. Do such persons attain the perfectional stage of life? Is it possible for them to be situated in real knowledge and elevate themselves to the highest perfectional stage? Do those who do not follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures, but who have faith in something and worship gods and demigods and men, attain success in their effort? Arjuna is putting these questions to Krishna.
Yes. So this is what essence is of Arjuna's question. And then in answer to that, we see that Krishna is now giving us the understanding. Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Vividha Bhavati Shraddha
Trividha Bhavati Shraddha
Dehinam Sa Swabhavaja
Swabhavaja
Satviki Rajasi Chaiva
Satviki Rajasi Chaiva
Tamasi Cheti Tam Shruno.
Tamasi Cheti Tam Shruno.
Translation, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The Supreme Personality of God said, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds: in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. Now hear about this. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So Krishna began his answer by saying that this is person who is embodied soul. Again, you have to understand embodied soul is a conditioned soul. The soul, in essence, is always liberated in part and parcel of Krishna. But when he is embodied, then his faith is of three kinds. That means the faith of soul, which is not embodied, is not based on the modes. Just like the soul is nirguna. Nirguna means he is beyond the modes. So similarly, his faith is also beyond the modes when he is in a situation where he is beyond the modes. So that faith is a pure faith of the soul, which is basically nothing but on the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. But when the soul gets in association with the modes or in material nature, Prakriti story, and when he comes in contact with the various modes, then based on that, his faith also becomes tinted or pinched with that particular type of mode. So Srila Prabhupada says very wonderful in the beginning part of the purport. It says, those who know the rules and regulations of the scriptures, those who know the rules and regulations of scripture, but out of laziness or indolence, give up following these rules and regulations, are governed by the modes of material nature. So a person may be knowing what are the rules and regulations of the scripture, but out of laziness or indolence is giving it up. Then what happens? Then he is governed by the modes of nature. So if we see this in our own life, so we can see that we know that it is best to chant early in the morning, and whenever some devotees, due to their shifts and all other things, they are not able to chant in the morning. But considering a general case wherein there is a possibility of chanting early in the morning and then going for work, even after that facility, available facility, if somebody out of laziness or indolence, he just doesn't pay heed to it, then what happens is he is governed by the mode. But if there is a chance for the person to be able to chant early in the morning and he's able to get up and chant his rounds nicely, so that means that he is working hard to come out of the modes. So like that. And that's why, according to the previous activities, Prabhupada says that the one gets a specific quality. That we saw previously also in 13th chapter and 14th chapter, that how because of Karanam Guna Sangosya, because of the association, the living entity gets the kind of body. And based on that particular type of body, again, his faith is also divided in this nature. So one very wonderful thing here mentioned by Srila Prabhupada is that how this person, based on his previous life, that's why he says the association of living entity with different modes of nature has been going on perpetually, Prabhupada is saying. But what is the hope for such a perpetual going on? So yes, somebody can read from this point, but in the last part.
Starting from Prabhuji, from
But
those who know the rules and regulations of the scriptures.
From here in between, but this nature can be.
Okay.
In the last part.
Okay. But this nature can be changed if one associates with a bona fide spiritual master and abides by his rules and the scriptures. Gradually, one can change his position from ignorance to goodness or from passion to goodness. The conclusion is that blind faith in a particular mode of nature cannot help a person become elevated to the perfectional stage. One has to consider things carefully with intelligence in the association of a bona fide spiritual master. Thus, one can change his position to a higher mode of nature. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So this is how Srila Prabhupada is giving the hope for that type of living entity who is under the modes and not exactly in the state of following the scriptures. So one may be of any nature, but by taking shelter of bona fide spiritual master and abiding by the scriptures, one can certainly change his position from whichever mode he is to goodness and from goodness to pure goodness. So that possibility is always there, and we see that is a prerogative of the human form of life. That the human form of life has got that choice, of various situations in his life, and then he can situate himself in a higher mode and a better life, like that. So this is how Krishna is explaining that the faith is divided into three based on one's position in mode. And Krishna will explain further how this happens. Sattvanurupa sarvasya.
Sattvanurupa
sarvasya.
Shraddha bhavati bharata.
Shraddha
bhavati bharata.
Shraddha mayoyam purusho.
Shraddhamayoyam purusho.
Yo yat shraddha sa eva saha.
Shraddha sa eva sa.
Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I'll read it. O son of Bharata, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of particular faith according to the modes he has acquired.
Yes. So here Krishna is using the word sattva. Here we see the word sattvanurupa sarvasya. So according to the existence of the Prabhupada's translation. So what is this existence exactly? So existence is not simply the existence means exist, but it means the subtle body, which includes the mind, intelligence, false ego, and more than that, most importantly, the antahkaran, the internal sense organ, antahkaran. So based on this, sattvanurupa, according to this, or based on this, sarvasya shraddha bhavati bharata. Everyone's faith is
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. I think we lost voice.
Yes, we lost voice.
based on shraddha. It is made up of shraddha. Yoyat shraddha sa eva saha. And Prabhupada mentioned that everyone has a particular type of faith regardless of what he is. And how that is decided based on what nature he has acquired. That is again same thing what Krishna has explained previously. But here, especially the thing mentioned is about that how Shraddha Maya means everything is actually based on faith. For example, if we see when a person is working hard in some company or in factory or something like that, and at the end of the month he is given a paycheck. So when he's given a paycheck, one has a faith that this check is going to get clear and amount is going to be credited into my account. So that faith is there. Somebody who doesn't have this faith, he may just say, "Oh, I worked so hard, and at the end of the day, he has not given me anything." Yeah, in this regard, I just remembered one situation that recently I had been to Vrindavan for making some DTs for one of our center, and there is one old man who is working on those DTs, and he is polishing and all those things, making it, finalizing it, and all those things. So when and his son is also dealing with me in terms of the money, when to pay and what to pay and all those things. So when I told him, the old man, he asked me, "So you are going to pay everything today before you leave with the DTs?" I said, yes, I'm going to transfer the amount. He said, transfer? What is this? I was very much disturbed because for him, what he has seen in his whole life is actual cash transaction. And suddenly the world has become digitalized. And for him, he has not become digitalized. So for him, it is a big shock. And he's wondering that, he's thinking that I have not got anything. Yeah, he said, you have just made fool out of me. You are taking my DTs from me and you are not giving me anything. That was what his feeling was. So basically, Shraddha is there at every level. Even we see that person who goes to barber shop for a shave or something like that. So he has a faith that the blade has come near the neck, but the barber is not going to cut my veins. So that kind of faith person is carrying. Or even when we book a flight ticket and we want to fly from one place to another, so we have a faith that the aviation company is going to take us at our destination safely. And same thing is with train or bus or cab or whatever it is. So every level we see that there is something or other, faith is always there. Even when we purchase some new car or something, so we have faith that this car is going to work well, and it's going to help us to travel from one place to another. Just recently, one of our devotees, I don't know whether I mentioned it here or in some other forum, they had purchased a new car, Tata Altroz, and on their first journey, when they were going to temple, from the showroom, suddenly at one place the car caught fire, and it was a great traumatic situation. Although both the Prabhuji and Mataji, husband and wife, they were very much peaceful. Yeah, they were peacefully chanting, but their sons, they were agitated. Like what kind of thing is this? And then they wrote a big email to the company and to the dealer, and they accepted their mistake. So the point is what, that with faith people purchase such things, gadgets, everything. Everywhere we see that there is a faith, element of faith is there everywhere, and that's why Krishna is saying Shraddha Mayo Yam. Everything here is based on Shraddha. But Prabhupada explains in the purport that what is the situation, that based on his Shraddha, he associates with that type of people. So if his Shraddha is tainted with mode of goodness, then he happens to associate with people who are in goodness. If his Shraddha is tainted with passion, then he happens to associate with passionate, and same is with ignorant. So say this happens like that. But originally, as we see in the 15th chapter, Krishna has declared that Mamai Vamsha Jiva Loke. That this Jivatma is my part and parcel, and that's why he is transcendental. So originally, as we saw in the previous verse also, that original faith or the pure faith of the soul is on Krishna, and that is transcendental. But in this conditioned state, then he has acquired these various situations. So this is what is explained according to this Shraddhamayam. So we will see some part of the purport which Prabhupada has mentioned. Here is the second paragraph. Yeah, somebody can read this. The word Shraddha.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I'll read it. The word Shraddha or faith is very significant in this verse. Shraddha or faith originally comes out of the mode of goodness. One's faith may be in demigod or some created god or some mental concoction. One's strong faith is supposed to be productive of works of material goodness. But in material conditional life, no works are completely purified. They are mixed. They are not in pure goodness. Pure goodness is transcendental. Yeah. Yes.
So here we see that Prabhupada is mentioning that this word Shraddha is the most important, and it is basically originally comes out of mode of goodness. So this is what is very, very important thing. That basically the Shraddha comes out of goodness, but as Prabhupada mentions that nothing is pure in this material world. So even the Shraddha, which is coming out of goodness, because goodness is also not itself pure, it is always tainted. So it glides down sometimes to passion and worst case into ignorance. And based on that, then also Shraddha is also similarly, reflected. So like that. So, and then here Prabhupada is mentioning in the middle part of the purport that the contaminated modes of material nature expand to heart. Now, the word heart here used by Prabhupada is to mean the antakaran. Antakaran is the innermost sense, we can say, the sense organ, which is the part of the heart. But when we say heart in English, we have an understanding of that organ which is pumping the blood, but that is not what Prabhupada is meaning. So that's what I wanted to clarify. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is writing this purport based on the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, wherein Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has used the word antakaran, or the internal sense organ, to be more specific. So like that. So according to the position of this antakaran, like the particular modes of material nature, one's faith is established. So here we can see this. I think you are not able to see the screen, no? Just a minute. Yeah. So here you can see that when the antakaran is sattvic, then Shraddha is also sattvic, and the scripture that one follows is also sattvic, and then the worship is of devatas. This will come in the next verse, and he is called as Deva. When it is Rajasik, antakaran is Rajasik, tainted with Rajasik, then his Shraddha also becomes Rajasik, and he follows the scriptures Rajasik, and he worships Rakshasas, and he is called as Rakshasa, like that. And then Tamasic, Bhutas and Pretas, and called as Bhutas. So this is how this situation happens for the living entity in this material world. So based on this type of faith, then comes the type of worship. So which is explained in the next verse. So because the Shraddha is tainted according to the mode, so similarly the resultant of that is worship. So that is also tainted. So in this last part of the purport, Prabhupada explains the same thing which we just displayed on the screen. Like that. So therefore now Krishna will speak about the people they worshipping in different modes, how it is. So yajante satvika devan,
Yajante satvika devan,
yaksha rakshamsi rajasaha,
Yaksha rakshamsi rajasa,
प्रेतान् भूतगणांश्चान्ये यजन्ते तामसा जनाः. Translation.
When in the mood of goodness, worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons, and those in the mode of ignorance worship the ghosts and spirits.
Yeah. So now we all have heard another thing also. What is that? Worship of people in mode of goodness. They worship what?
Demigod.
There is
Demigods.
this is according to this translation. But in another place, we have heard many times that those who are in goodness worship Vishnu. Those who are in passion worship demigods like Brahma, Indra, Chandra, Surya. And those who are in ignorance, they worship
Shiva.
Yes, correct. Shiva, Durga, etc. So that we have heard there. And here Krishna is saying something different. So how we can reconcile all these things? So we can see that basically in the previous chapter, Krishna has talked about the people who are following the scriptures, and Krishna has called them as divine, Daiva, So when the people are following the scriptures, so they may follow, like there are 18 Puranas, and then Matsya Purana gives that verse explanation that how the Puranas are divided into three, Sattva, Raja, and Tama, and based on that person's situation in particular mode, he accepts that particular scripture. So that is explained there. So basically, what is that for? That is for those people who have accepted scripture. And for acceptance of scripture, according to this verse over here, needs the person to be in goodness. That means what? Initially is in goodness to some extent. That's why he has accepted following of scripture. So that may be any scripture, but essentially he is faithful follower of some scripture. And because he is faithful follower of some scripture, then he has a choice based on, again, is how the modes are acting upon him. Then he accepts either worship of Vishnu or worship of demigods or worship of Shiva. So it is like goodness. If somebody is worshipping Vishnu, and if somebody is worshipping demigods, then it is like goodness passion. And if somebody is worshipping Shiva or Kali, then it's like worship in goodness, ignorance. So basically, this even in goodness there is gradation. How can we understand this? To make us clear, we can see that in general, when we say like this, so we say that devatas are in goodness, humans are in passion, and animals are in ignorance. So that we saw, ado urdhvam gacchanti sattvastha, madhye tishtanti rajansa, jaganya guna vrittistha, ado gacchanti tamasa. In that verse, we saw this, that in general, demigods are situated in goodness, and humans are situated in passion, and animals, beasts, they are in ignorance. But when we talk of animals, there is also an explanation that the animal like cow is in goodness, or the animal like tiger and lion, they are in passion, or animals like monkey and jackals, so they are like in ignorance. So then already we are defining that all the animal kingdom is in ignorance. Then again, why there is an explanation? So again, the same answer or the same understanding, that there is gradation even in that situation. So there is animals who are in goodness, means that is ignorance, goodness. Then there is animals who are in passion, that means ignorance, passion. And animals which are in ignorance completely, so they are ignorant. So like that. So somebody who is in animal life, now if we are talking about again ignorance and goodness and passion, So if somebody is in animal life, then there is no question for him starting off his spiritual life or his life of progressive transmigration. So I'm sorry, the life of progressive transmigration will take place, but there is no chance of elevating his consciousness directly by some practice of spiritual life. In animal life, this is not possible. So that's why we see that, but the spiritual life can continue in animal life. One may not be able to start spiritual life in animal life, but one can be able to continue his spiritual life in animal life. Can anyone say any example for this?
Gajendra.
Yes.
Rajendra.
Yes. And one more?
Jadabharata.
Yes, Bharat Maharaj becoming deer.
Deer, yes.
Like that. So this is, from this we can understand that Purvena Veta Riyate, Krishna says Paurvadehikam, that based on his previous samskaras, he continues whatever he has left behind, his spiritual progress. So Bharat Maharaj, when he so then one may question, how did he get animal body if he is performing devotional service? That will be another question. So answer to that is that just like the laws of devotional service are acting, that even he is getting dear body, he is not forgetting that consciousness. Similarly, laws of nature are also acting till the point one is not free. And what is that laws of nature? That yam yam vapis parandhavam tyajatyante kalevaram. That whatever thing you are remembering at the time of death, that thing you are going to get in your next body. So that way we can see. But Bharat Maharaj, although he got the dear body, he did not lose the consciousness of a devotee. That's why we see that even he was staying in the hermitage of sages, and he did not go around and try to search for lush green grasses. Whatever grass was available, he was just eating, they maintain the body and sitting there in association with the sages. So his consciousness was intact, although according to law of karma, he had to take the body of deer, or in same case in the Gajendra. His consciousness got revived at the right stage, of his life, and then thereby he got the spiritual body eventually. So through this, what we are trying to explain here is that although basically all the animals may be in ignorance, but there is a gradation. Similarly, this worship of people who are in sattva guna primarily, in that also there is gradation, so that we discussed. And now here Krishna is talking about especially those people who are not having faith in scripture. So then they may also worship to some extent here and there. So then their mode is explained over here. So I hope this is clear as far now. So here men in mode of goodness worship the demigods, those in mode of passion worship the demons, and those in mode of ignorance worship the ghosts and spirit. And Srila Prabhupada gives very wonderful analogies or examples in the purport. Prabhupada makes mention that those who are worshipper of demigods like Indra, Chandra, Varuna, and etc., so they are categorized in this mode of goodness, whereas people who are in passion, they worship demons. And Prabhupada gives example that in the World War II in Calcutta, there was a man who was worshipping Hitler because of that war. Actually, this person could gather a lot of money through black market. So that's why he was worshipping Hitler. So we can see that what kind of people have mentalities, Or then Prabhupada explains that how in villages sometimes some people, they go into the deep into the forest wherein they know that some ghost stay in some tree or something like that, and they worship that tree by offering some foodstuffs or something like that to that tree. So that is how the people in mode of ignorance, they worship. So here Prabhupada, here Krishna has mentioned two words, Pretan Bhuta Ganams Anye. So what is the Preta and Bhuta? So Bhuta are nothing but those, like we see that this basic understanding we all have, that the soul is covered over by the subtle body and the gross body. So when the living entity who is embodied in this way, he tries to end his life before his jurisdiction. Then, as a matter of punishment, he is not awarded the gross body till the time of his duration is completed. In simple terms, we can see that if his lifespan is based on, let's say, 60, 70 years, and he commits suicide at the age of 30 or 40, so then whatever remaining number of years is that, as a matter of punishment, he is not given gross body immediately, because his duration has to be completed and he has suddenly quit the body, So then such living entities who has the subtle body but doesn't have the gross body are called as bhuta, and we call that in general as ghosts. And what is preta? So preta is when a living entity or embodied soul, when it dies normally, and then till the time after his death, again the same thing, he doesn't have gross body, because at the time of death we know that soul along with the subtle body leaves the gross body because it is no longer usable, or whatever may be the reason. So when the normal death has happened according to his time limitation, or according to his duration, then he leaves the body, and after he leaves the body, he gets another body till the time he gets another gross body. So he is supposed to transmigrate into another body which is already destined, but there is some time gap in between that, and that time gap he is offered a temporary body which is subtler than the gross body but grosser than the subtler body. Basically, it is between subtle and gross body. So that kind of body is offered to him, and that is called as preta. And then later on, once there's next destination is decided, then he is offered the that type of body, which is a proper gross body. So like that. And in the final part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining here. Yes, somebody can read this, and then we will have a discussion.
The impersonalists are supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness, and they worship 5 kinds of demigods. They worship the impersonal Vishnu form in the material world, which is known as philosophized Vishnu. Vishnu is the expansion of Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the impersonalists, because they do not ultimately believe in Supreme Personality of Godhead, imagine that the Vishnu form is just another aspect of the impersonalist Brahman. Similarly, they imagine that Lord Brahma is the impersonal form of the material mode of passion. Thus, they sometimes describe 5 kinds of gods that are worshipable. But because they think that the actual truth is impersonal Brahma, they dispose of all worshipable objects at the ultimate end. In the conclusion, the different qualities of material modes of nature can be purified through the association with persons who are transcendental in nature. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So, this Shankaracharya, we know that he started this system called as Panchopasana. So, wherein they worship the 5 kinds of demigods. That is Vishnu, or we can say Durga Devi, Surya, Ganesha, Shiva, and Vishnu. But in essence, we see that when we talk about worship of Vishnu, the goal of our life is to reach the abode of Lord Vishnu for eternal service. But when the impersonalists are worshipping Vishnu or any other this type of demigod, their goal is to go beyond the form. So they are thinking that these forms are nothing but the transformation of impersonal absolute truth into some form, as Srila Prabhupada is explaining here in this last part of the purport. And then by this worship, we should able to go beyond the form and reach the impersonal Brahman. So that is their understanding of their life. So, but although we see that Shankaracharya has proclaimed this philosophy, but internally he was a covered. It is said that he was a covered personalist. So he was externally he has put forth this theory to bewilder the people of those age, or in other words, we can say to bring back the people in the Vedic fold, because before that was the incarnation of Buddha, which had taken everyone away from the Vedic scriptures. Buddha himself said, "Don't follow Vedas, follow me," and that's how people rejected Vedas. To bring back people in the Vedic fold, Shankaracharya had put forth this philosophy, which was for that temporary phase and not to be used for eternity. Uh, so he's a covered personage because we see that he has composed so many ashtakams in glorification of so many Vishnu murtis. And even we see that in places like Badrinath and Joshimath and all those places, there are those followers of Shankaracharya staying there and worshipping the Lord, and serving them in a nice way by singing various ashtakams composed by Shankaracharya. But they have this wrong interpretation or wrong understanding about the end or goal of the life. So that is how they are in a wrong way. But still, Prabhupada is mentioning here that they are situated in mode of goodness. So even the Panchopasana people, they are considered to be part of mode of goodness. Yeah. So this is just, I like to take a small break if anyone has any questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. So, Panchopasana is those five the things they put in the plate, right? Prabhu, Vishnu, Aditya, Durga, Ganesh. That right, Prabhuji?
Yes, that is correct. So
And
they
then,
are,
yeah, and then but they worship them as themselves, right? Like Vishnu, Ganesha. How come they're impersonalist, Prabhuji? Like impersonalist somebody who think there is no personification of God, but they are worshipping a form of Vishnu, a form of Ganesh. So I'm not able to understand that difference.
they say that this is the part of our sadhana to go beyond the form. So use this worship of demigod and Vishnu as a means of going beyond the form. And they say that when you get sufficiently purified by this worship, then you will realize that actually this is nothing but the transformation of impersonal absolute truth. So that is what Prabhupada is mentioning in this last part of the purport, that Vishnu philosophized Vishnu. Now, there is nothing called as philosophized Vishnu. Vishnu is real existence. Why Prabhupada is using the word philosophize? Because they are philosophizing it, that impersonal truth has transformed into form of Vishnu. Like that. Or impersonal truth, when it comes in mode of passion, then it transforms into Brahma and all some other demigods. So that is their understanding. When impersonal truth comes in form of Sattva Gun, then it becomes Vishnu. When it comes in mode of passion, then demigods are coming. And when it comes in ignorance, then other lower humans and other lower beings are there. So this is what they have this understanding, like that. So even we see that in Chaitanya Leela, when one of, I don't remember the name of the devotee, when he was coming from to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. So there was one person of the name Ramdas who was accompanying this devotee, and he was constantly chanting the name of Lord Ram. And when this devotee reached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri, he said that with me is a very nice devotee who is constantly chanting the name of Lord Ram. So then Mahaprabhu did not even look at him and did not appreciate even him. And later on, Mahaprabhu said actually he is a Mayavadi and he is desiring to become one with Lord Ram by chanting the name of Lord. So even they have this kind, not just worship of any form, but even they are utilizing chanting the name of the Lord to merge with the Lord or to become one with the Lord. Is that okay?
Yeah, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, one more question, if I may. Actually, I come from the Sampradaya where they do Panchayatanam, which is Panchopasana. What is the reason, Prabhuji, they put all together? Is it because they consider all of them same, equal? Like, they put Shiva in the center and then in Aditya, Vishnu, Ganesh, and Durga Devi come in the round. Is it the meaning that they are all same for them? Is it why they put it together?
Frankly speaking, I don't have much idea about that. But the understanding given by Prabhupada and through these books, which we understand, if they are putting Shiva in the center, means they're Shaivite. They are mostly Shaivite. So they are considering Shiva to be the supreme. And even in they don't end in that, as we discussed just now. They want to actually merge into impersonal Brahman. So
Okay, Prabhuji, got it. Thank you, Prabhuji.
but point lost over the years. And what has remained is just the tradition of worshipping that, and the main thing has been lost. So it also might be there, that they even such worshippers are not knowing that we are supposed to merge into the Brahman after this. So that may also be the case.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
So let us move ahead here. So now Krishna is going to talk about somebody who is going to do very ardent or ghor tapasya, which is not mentioned in scripture. So let's see that. Ashastra vihitam ghoram
Shastra vihitam ghoram
tapyante ye tapojanaah
tapyante ye tapojana
dambhahankara sanyuktaah
dambhankara samyukta
kamaraga balanvitaah
raga balanvita
कर्षयन्तः शरीरस्थं
karshayanta sharirastam
ग्रामम् अचेतसः
bhutagramam acetasaha
आं चैवान्तः शरीरस्थं
mam chevanta sharirastam
तान् विद्धि असुरनिश्चयान्
tan vidhi asura nischaya.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, who are foolish and who torture the material elements of the body as well as the super soul dwelling within, are to be known as demons.
So we can see that in the previous chapter already Krishna has at a length talked about demons. So again, Krishna is giving in summary their mentality here. But he is talking here in terms of how they are creating a great torment to themselves and even to me, who is situated in their body. So Krishna is talking about this, and report talks about this mode of austerity which people are manufacturing on their own. He gives example of fasting. For instance, fasting for some ulterior purpose, such as to promote a purely political end, is not mentioned in the scriptural directions. So Prabhupada says that that how this is nothing but their own ulterior motive. They want to achieve some political end. That's why they are doing some kind of fasting. But this is not expressed anywhere in the scripture. And why fasting is recommended? Then Prabhupada tells that it is for spiritual advancement. So here in the middle part, Prabhupada says, by such activities, not only is the combination of material elements of which the body is constructed disturbed, but also the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself living within the body is disturbed. So now my question is, okay, they are doing fasting for political, so that's why bodily construction is disturbed. So sometimes we are also fasting for Ekadashi or another occasions. That time, bodily construction disturbed or not?
don't have-
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Prabhuji, Ekadasi feasting is pleasing to Lord Krishna, Prabhuji, so it is accepted, and others and all not accepted by the scriptures.
Ekadashi feasting, did I heard Ekadashi feasting or Ekadashi fasting?
Fasting, Prabhuji, not feasting.
Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, because that is according to the scripture. And secondly, one recently I heard some scientific reason also that on Ekadashi actually some in the body there are certain things which wherein body needs some rest. So that day, that is the 11th day after no moon or full moon. That is a very good day for giving body rest to recover all the losses that has happened due to other days, whatever eating and all those things are happening. So that's one scientific reason which I heard. So in terms of if you see, actually while fasting, when you fast on Ekadashi day, the bodily construction is not disturbed, but it is repaired. And Supreme Lord within the heart is very joyful. That the conditioned living entity is in a state of emancipation, and he is trying his hard to come to his real understanding. So yes, that is the thing. And then Prabhupada further ahead explains even the word achetasaha. So here Prabhupada says, the word achetasaha is significant in this connection. Persons of normal mental condition must obey the scriptural injunctions. And those who are not in such a position neglect and disobey the scriptures and manufacture their own way of austerities and penances. So like that. Achetasaha means, chetasaha means they should know what one has to do according to the scripture. But these are all achetasaha who are manufacturing their own ways of penances.
Prabhuji, so people who do this their own fasting, like, okay, I'm doing Santoshi Mata for Friday and Sai Baba for Thursday, no eating rice, but they eat everything else. So those are all self-created kind of, self-concocted methods, right? They're not in scriptures.
Correct. So here, as Prabhupada is mentioning again, here word we see that last word used by Krishna is Tan Vidhi Asura Nishchaya. Oh, where did we reach? Sorry. Yeah. So Tan Vidhi Asura Nishchayan is the word, last word used by Krishna. And in the previous chapter, here Prabhupada is saying that in the previous chapter already Krishna has mentioned the destination of such asuras who are not at all following the scriptures. So in this just 2 verses, the summary of the section of previous chapter has been mentioned. And now Krishna will go ahead and say that one can make out person's mode of faith, in which type of faith he is having, based on his activities of eating, sacrifice, austerity, and charity. Or in other words, ahara, yajna, dana, tapa. So that's why Krishna will now explain all these four activities, how they are in different modes, and what is the how can one identify that. So in the beginning, on the 7th verse, Krishna talks about all four of them, and after that, subsequently in three verses, Krishna gives explanation about each of those items. Ahara sattva, ahara stvapi sarvasya,
आहारस्त्वपि
आहारस्त्वपि
सर्वस्य
सर्वस्य
vido bhavati priyah,
त्रैविधो
त्रिविधो
भवति प्रियः
प्रियः
यज्ञस्तपस्तथा दानं,
यज्ञस्तपस्तथा दानं
यज्ञस्तपस्तथा दानं
तम् इमं शृणु.
तेषं
तेषं
भेदम् इमं
भेदम्
शृणु
इमं शृणु.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavatana. Translation: even the food each person prefers is of three kinds, according to the three modes of material nature. The same is true of sacrifices, austerities, and charity. Now here are the distinctions between them.
Yes. So Krishna is now going to explain how we can understand it. So you can read this from those who can understand.
Those who can understand analytically what kind of performances are in what modes of material nature are actually wise. Those who consider all kinds of sacrifice or food or charity to be the same cannot discriminate, and they are foolish. There are missionary workers who advocate that one can do whatever he likes and attain perfection. But these foolish guides are not acting according to the direction of the scripture. They are manufacturing ways and misleading the people in general.
So one is supposed to be wise, means no, again the same thing like divine. Divine prakriti means, demoniac prakriti means what? Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidura. They don't know what is pravritti, what is nivritti. They don't know what is right achar. Napi shaucham, napi chachara. So all these things are there for these demoniac people. But actually that should be known, and that is considered as somebody who is wise. But the people who are foolish, they are simply unaware, and they advocate their own concocted ideas and mislead the people in general. So this is the mood of Srila Prabhupada, that how such people in this material world, there are so many cheaters in the material world who are cheating the innocent mass of people and giving them some substandard principles which are sometimes not even mentioned in the scriptures. So now in 8th, 9th and 10th verse, Krishna will tell us the food which is in goodness, passion and ignorance. So there is no purport for 8 and 9. So we'll recite 8, 9 and 10, and then we will have a discussion about all these three. Ayusattva balarogya,
आयुष्मा बलारोग्य
प्रीतिविवर्धनाः,
सुखप्रीतिविवर्धनाः
तस्या स्निग्धा स्थिरा हृद्या,
रस्या स्निग्धा स्थिरा हृद्या
आहारः सात्विकप्रियाः.
आहारः
सात्विकं
Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purity, one's existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart.
Katwamla lavanyaptushna,
कट्वाम्ला लवण्यान् तुष्णा
tikshna rukshna vidahinah,
तीक्ष्णा रूक्षा विदाहिनः
श्रेष्ठ
आहाराश्रेष्ठ
शोकामयप्रदाः.
दुःखशोकामयप्रदाः.
Foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning are dear to those in the mode of passion. Such foods cause distress, misery, and disease.
यातयामं गतरसं
यातयामं गतरसं
पर्युषितं च यत्
पर्युषितं च यत्
तमपि चामेध्यम्
उच्छिष्टमपि चामेध्यं
भोजनं तामसप्रियम्
भोजनं तामसप्रियम्.
Translation.
Food prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten, food that is tasteless, decomposed, and putrid, and food consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to those in the mode of darkness.
So, just you can see what Krishna is saying about Satvika food. He's saying Vivardhana. The word Vivardhana is used. Means it increases. What it increases? Ayuhu, Sattva, Bala, Arogya, Sukha, Priti. So all these things are increased because of Satvika Priya, Satvika food. So one may wonder, how can Ayu be increased? Ayu is fixed. So how it can be increased? So yes, anyone has any thoughts on this? How Ayu can be increased by Sattva food? Or how it is increased?
Because Satvika food, Prabhuji, scientifically also is more alkaline in nature, and therefore it's not acidic. So acid is so anything which is acidic actually is the home ground for all diseases. So in the absence of that, it's the ideal ground for health and assuming. I heard this in some home nature cure session.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, it's Satvika food gives happiness and bala. So by that, our Rayu is increasing, Prabhuji.
Because of the Ayu.
Prabhuji, the entire Ayu is same, but the healthy life is more within that.
Yes. And other way around now, if you see, these all are very correct answers, or we can say right answers, because every answer has some right aspect in it. So that is one way. And another way we see that if somebody is living Rajasic life or eating Rajasic food, so that actually reduces the life. So in that context, in general, when we talk about this, so that is the general, the people are either eating Rajasic or Tamasic. So from that context, if you see, if somebody is eating Sattvic, then his Ayu is increasing means what? As compared to your current situation, what you are eating, the Rajasic and Tamasic food, if you shift to Sattvic food, then your Ayu will increase. Means, if you are eating Rajasic food, then whatever actual number of duration you have, it is all anyways going to reduce, because of your Rajasic eating and Tamasic eating. Another way to look towards this is that we also say that our life is counted based on how much inhaling and exhaling we are doing. So based on that also it is considered. So when in Rajasic lifestyle, or when you eat Rajasic food, then you are bound to inhale, exhale more, and that is how you are reducing your lifespan. But in goodness, the lifespan in that sense increases. So it's not that if you have 100 years to live, then because of living in Rajasic Sattvic food, you are going to live 105. Not in that sense, but if you are going to eat food in Rajasic and Tamasic, then you are reducing from 100 to 90. So that way we see that Ayu increases. And Sattva, so Sattva also increases. So what is this Sattva? Sattva means Here Prabhupada is considered existence, but it can also mean substance. Substance in life, is there. And then bala also increases the strength, arogya, sukha, priti. So all these things are increasing when somebody is eating sattvic food. And how is this sattvic food that Krishna is giving the characteristics of this sattvic food? So, rasyaha, snigdaha, sthiraha, hrudyaha, that is the characteristic. Rasya means it is juicy. Snigdaha is it is fatty. Sthiraha, that is enduring, means wholesome. And hrudyaha means it is very pleasing to the heart. On the other hand, now if we see the next verse, then we will come to understand that Krishna just not talked about what is the characteristic of Satvika food, and immediately in the next verse, Krishna is talking about characteristics of Rajasik food. Katu, it's very bitter. Amla, Sar, Lavanya, Ati, that is very salty, and Ati Ushna, that is very hot. Tikshna, Rukshna. Tikshna is piercing, pungent. Rukshna is very dry. And Vidana is that is burning the heart. So here the previous verse we saw, it is Rudyaha, that is it is very pleasing to the heart. And here it is Vidahina. So we see all this fast food comes in this kind of category, where people are simply doing in that way they are going and eating, so that is very hot, that is very pungent, and sometimes ruksha, all these bakery items and all those things, so vidahina, they are all burning to the heart. So that and what is the result of having rajasika ahar? Then Krishna explains that later. Dukkha shokamaya pradaha. It only gives misery, and one has to simply lament. And amaya means leads to diseases. So here Krishna has talked about first what increases because of sattva guna, and then the characteristics. And here Krishna has talked about the characteristics of passion food, and then he has explained the consequences of eating the passionate food. That is dukkha, shoka, and amaya. It provides you, dukkha, shoka, and amaya, like that. And then in the 10th verse, Krishna is talking about the characteristics of the food in mode of ignorance. That is yata yamam, gata rasam. Yata yamam means that which is cooked before 3 hours. And gata rasam means there is no juice remaining in that. Puti paryushitam chayat, So puti is bad smelling, paryushitam is decomposed, Uchishtam, that is the remnants of somebody else's. Apicha amedhyam. Amedhyam is untouchable, or in other words, it is meat and other food. So bhojanam tamasa priyaha, priyam. So like that. So then in the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada gives explanation about how one should take foods which are in mode of goodness, and then he talks about how these fat foods which was mentioned. You remember the word snigdaha was there in verse number 8, and Prabhupada translated as fatty. So Srila Prabhupada explains the word fatty foods does not mean that one has to slaughter the animal and eat the flesh, but the fat of the animal is available through the milk and the milk products like cheese and butter and ghee and dahi, etc. So there is no need to slaughter the animal unnecessarily, and a lot of proteins can be made available through split peas, dal, whole wheat, etc. So that is what is explained by Srila Prabhupada in the purport. And then for the foods in mode of passion, Srila Prabhupada explains that how all these the items which are too hot or overly mixed with red pepper, they simply cause misery. How they cause misery? By reducing the mucus in the stomach, leading to diseases. So many of you might be knowing this phenomenon of leaky gut. So what is this leaky gut is what actually Prabhupada is explaining here. That the lining of the intestine is damaged because of all this pungent food, and then there are some holes, and in that through that, the lining which is there actually is very fine, which doesn't allow big particles to enter into the blood through intestine, but digested particle is allowed. But because of eating such spicy and all kind of passionate food, this lining gets damaged, and it allows bigger particles of also which are not properly digested, and then they enter into the blood and they get deposited in various parts of the body, and that's how in Ayurveda terms it is called as amavat, you know. So arm is formed. So all these things we see. So all this happens because of this kind of food. And then here Prabhupada explains that any food cooked more than 3 hours before it is eaten is considered to be in mode of darkness, except prasadam food offered to the Lord. So this is quite interesting. I'll share with you this one verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. We heard this story of Sarvam Bhattacharya being liberated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he heard from him that whatever philosophy for 7 days, and at the end when Sarvam Bhattacharya asked, are you understanding anything? Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that that Vedanta is very clear to me, but your explanation is covering everything. And after that whole episode happens, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains in the Vedanta, everything happens, he surrenders. And then once Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes to his home early in the morning with Jagannath Prasad, and then he offers, and that time just Sarvam Bhattacharya comes out of his bed. And as he comes out, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives him this prasad, and Sarvam Bhattacharya, even without getting out of his bed or even without washing his mouth or something, eats directly, you know. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately, Bhattacharya, how are you doing? Something like that, you know. This is not a proper conduct for somebody like you. So then Sarvam Bhattacharya quotes these verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this I am now sharing with all of you. He says, Shushkam Paryushitam Vapi Nitam Va Duradeshitaha Rapti Matrena Bhoktavyam Natra Kala Vicharana. Bhattacharya said, one should eat the Mahaprasadam of the Lord immediately upon receiving it, even though it is dried up, stale, or brought from a distant country. One should consider neither time nor place, you know. So here we can see that Srila Prabhupada is writing here, when he is writing something, it is backed up with scriptural reference, you know. So food offered to the Lord never is in any kind of mode. It is always transcendental. And the next verse he says, Na desha niyamas tatra na kala niyamas tatha praptamannam drutam shistay bhoktavyam harirabravit. The prasadam of the Lord is to be eaten by gentlemen as soon as it is received. There should be no hesitation. There are no regulative principles concerning time and place. This is the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So hearing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becomes very happy. So here, Srila Prabhupada is talking about this. And then finally, Prabhupada talks about remnants of food should not be eaten. They can be eaten only if that which is offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know? So this is what Prabhupada says here. You can see. Remnants of the food eaten only when they are part of a meal that was first offered to the Supreme Lord or first eaten by the 70 persons, especially the spiritual master. So this is very, very important. You know, sometimes devotees in a very jovial mood try to take, oh, I want your Maha Maha, you know, in this way, that way. But scriptures recommend that the remnants of the food should be taken of spiritual master. You know? So this is very, very important. Not with you know, anyone else. That is not recommended. Otherwise, the remnants of food are considered to be in mode of darkness, and they increase infection or disease. So like that. Yeah. So that is all about this discussion on food in different forms. So any questions on this? Fine. So we'll conclude today with this. and we will continue from verse number 11 in our next session of the last.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
Yes, please.
Prabhuji, this is Lilananda. 1 minute, I'll just on my camera.
I'm having here bandwidth problem, so I'm not putting it on. So,
Yeah, sure, Prabhuji. Yeah, Prabhuji, this is regarding, I know we discussed last time. I think we are aiming at 29th, right, of this month to finish the Bhagavad Gita part 3.
yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, because we are planning for the closed book exam. I just proposed a date of 7th of May. I think we should be having 1 week gap after we finish this. So 29th, like right now looks realistic, right, Prabhuji? That's what you told last time. So
Yeah.
we will,
In fact,
yeah.
And one session early also. Let's see how it goes.
Sure, Prabhuji. So we will plan for 7th.
But that's why we have kept little more time for 18th chapter.
Yeah.
But you can for 7th for your exam.
Sure. Thank you. And Prabhuji, very grateful to yourself and all other Prabhujis. You all are, we are very excited. You all have accepted to come to Hyderabad. So for us to meet you in person. So thank you very much, Prabhuji.
We are very thankful to you for giving us this opportunity.
No,
to
we
be
should be
able to serve.
thankful. You all are taking your time out. Yes, bro. Please block your calendars that day. Yeah, we will
Already
get in. So we will call you and book do the remaining bookings, bro, soon, in a week or so.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Jai.
Pranam Prabhuji. And check out the Vishnu Kripa Pradanam Pavan Vaishnava Vaishnava